Today you're gonna learn about queues in Python. Hello everybody, I'm Saion Gupta, founder at 10x Coder Kids, and let's get started. Let's get started. So there is no predefined queue data type, so we have to create our own queue data type. So we are creating a class queue. In that we have our init method that will define variables and methods that we are going to use. So it will basically define variables that we are going to use, properties that we are going to use in our for the class, right? So we are just creating an items property, right? And that is an empty list. Okay, next we have an enqueue method. So you need to understand this perfectly. What is a queue? So a queue will basically, like, it is like this. We will have a list. The first person, so it is like first in, first out, right? It is first in, first out. So whoever goes first, that person will come out first, right? So a queue is basically first in, first out. So that we are using in a queue class. So in queue will basically add an item, right? And because so what will happen? The first item that will be considered in the queue. So the first, like, member of the queue will be the last element in our list. So basically, I'll show it to you. So if we have this list, okay, if we have this list, the first member in the queue is this element, that is the last element, and the second member, that is the last element, the last member is the first element. So basically, first this was added, then this was added, and when we remove, then this would be removed first, and then this would be removed. So pretty cool. So let's see. In enqueue, what we are getting an item, right? And what we are doing, we are in our items array, we are inserting on the 0th element item. So it is like whenever we insert, whenever someone comes into the queue, someone will come at the last. Now they can't come in the front, who is already standing on the first position, right? So if I am standing here and you just want to enter the queue, you can't come in front of me. You have to stand at the last place. So when we enqueue, this is the last place. The 0th place is the last place in our queue. So when we add an item in our queue, it will be added on the 0th position because it is the last place, and whenever something comes in a queue, it comes on the last place. So if I add some number like 1, it will come on the last place. So this is the first person in the queue, this is the second person standing in the queue, and this is the third person standing in the queue. We also have a dequeue method, that is to remove methods, right? And we are checking if there is something in items, if it is not empty, right? If it is not empty, then we'll just pop an item because it is first in, first out. So B was first in the queue, and when this would be popped, it is first out. So whoever comes in first goes out first. So B came in first, so it will go out first, right? So think of it as a store. Like, some everybody is waiting in a line, right? So when you're checking out, right, at some place where you're buying your groceries, you're checking out. So there's a queue over there now, and for the first person is checking out, so his checkout will complete first, and he will be out of the queue because he was first in the queue. His checkout completed first, and he is now out of the queue, right? So he was first in, and now he's first out. So whenever we dequeue, this is the first item in the queue. This is the first item in the queue, right? So if if there is some item, we'll just pop. That is, pop removes the last item. So basically the last element in the array is the first item of the queue. So basically when we are dequeuing, it will remove the last element, that is the first item of our queue, else it will just return none. Then we are defining a peek function, and it is checking that if there's something in items, then just check the last element in our list, right? So just check what is the value of the last element in our list. That is basically the first person in the queue. So when we are accessing, like doing a self.items -1, so we are accessing the last element in our list. But for our queue, that is the first item. So the last element in our list is the first item. So we are checking what is the value of the first item in the queue. Pretty cool. Next, we are checking if the queue is empty, and this will return not self.items. So like for example, a self.items, if there's nothing in it, it will give us false, and not will reverse it, so false equals true now, so it will return true. So if self.items will be empty, right, it will give us false, that will be reversed, so it will return true. So that means that our queue is empty. If it is not empty, so if self.items returns true because there's something in it, when we reverse the result, it will, the true will convert to false, right? So the true will convert to false, so that is telling that no, the queue is not empty. Pretty cool. Next we have the size function, and we are just getting the length of our items, that how long is the queue. And finally we are creating a dunder method string, and I'm going to create a full video on dunder methods, so stay tuned for that. But this is a dunder method, and this is just telling that whenever we access an object of a queue class by the name, for example, I create an object uh, q1, right? So if I create an object q1 of class q, whenever I access q1 by the name, so whenever I, for example, try to print q1, what it will do, it will okay. So so q1 does not exist right now, but whenever I try to print, it will see that I'm trying to directly access an object of my q class. So it will invoke the dunder method string, that whenever I'm trying to access an object, right? So whenever I'm trying to access an object by its name, what happens, it returns the value that the string dunder method gives. So the string dunder method, we are defining what should it give. So it is giving a string representation of our queue, right? So it is giving us a string representation of a queue that will then be printed. So now let's test this out. We have created q1 over here, and that is an object of queue. We are in queuing two times, so we are adding 1 and 2. So I'll just keep a track. So we will have like this is the first person in the queue, and this is the second person, last person in the queue. Then we peek. So what is the value of the first person? So the first person is 1, right? Next we check if it is empty. No, it is not empty. We check its size, it is 2 because there are 2 people in the queue. Then we print q1, so the string dunder method is invoked, and we get the string representation of our this queue. So we will get sorry, we will get 2 comma 1 like this. Then we dequeue, so this will be removed. So when we dequeue, this will be removed, so we are only left with 2. We print q1, so the string method, the string dunder method is invoked, and it gives us a string representation of our list of our queue. So we will get this, and then we dequeue once again. So now this is also removed, and then we print if it is empty. So now it is empty, so it will give us true. So let's run this. Pretty cool. So we get first one. When we check, when we peek, what is the first element in the queue? 1 is the first item in the queue. Then we check if it is empty. No, it is not empty, so it gave us false. Then we check its size. There are two people in the queue, so 2 is the size. Then we print q1, so the string render method was invoked, and we basically got a string representation of our queue, that is this. Sorry, when I was commenting and showing you what was there, I forgot these brackets. Okay, and next we dequeue and then print q1. So now the first element, first in first out, so the first that came in now is gone, so this that came in is gone, so we are left with this, and then we dequeue once again, and then we print if q1 is empty. So that is true, because when this was dequeued once again, when q1 was dequeued, this last item, the last person in the queue, was also removed. So now we have an empty list, that is an empty queue. So now it is empty, right? It is an empty queue, so it is giving us true. Very simple class, and it is a very useful class. And guys, I hope you like the video. Thank you. Bye. Stay safe, stay healthy, and subscribe.